Hey everybody, Lauren Breeden, speech language pathologist here again. And today's topic for this episode is phonological processes. So if you don't know what that is, essentially an easy way to think about that is just errors that kids make in their speech that are completely okay, completely typical, expected. They only are a concern if they extend past a certain age. Okay. So I'm going to share a couple handouts with you. And just like the other videos that I've done, I will post the link. It's to a Google Drive with the documents that I'm sharing with you today, so you have access to them as well. So again, my focus for the bulk of my career was with early childhood intervention, so birth to 3. So beyond that, it's not that I'm not educated in the other ages, but birth to 3 is really where my expertise is. And so that's where I'm going to focus. Okay. So let me share my screen and I'll show you a couple of these handouts. Okay, so if you are a parent watching this video, this handout's going to be your best friend. This really just gives a good overview of what phonological processes are and breaks down some of the most common types of phonological processes. So this is from Super Duper Publications, which is, as an SLP, one of our favorite places to shop besides Amazon. But they have everything, speech and language and augmentative communication and articulation and everything. So they have a lot of really good things and a lot of really good information. So anyways, it kind of gives you just another blanket overview of normal speech sound acquisition. You can watch the other video on articulation if you want to see more about that. And then it gets down to some of the more common phonological processes. So it says processes that disappear, that should disappear by age 3. So let me go through these really quick. Unstressed syllable deletion is when they leave out the unstressed syllable. For example, they say telephone for telephone because telephone, the is actually the unstressed syllable. So they're basically just simplifying that word. Final consonant deletion is when I saw all the time with my toddlers. Very, very common. And the basic premise is they just leave off the final sound in that word, final consonant deletion. And so bus may sound like ba, or cat may sound like ka. Okay. Consonant assimilation is basically when one consonant in the word just influences another. So bed might sound like beb, or coat may sound like coke, okay, because they're the same consonant. Reduplication is just when the child repeats that first syllable twice, so it could be wawa for water or baba for bottle. And then velar fronting is when instead of saying the K and the G sound, which are in the back of the throat, they are using a front sound such as T for like tookie for cookie or dote for goat. So that's also another really common one that I would see. So if your child is making any of these errors right now and they are not 3 yet, don't freak out about it. Okay. Just work with them on, using clear speech, model clear speech for them. Don't overdo it, but model clear speech for them. And then in future videos, I will also do some articulation specific techniques and activities to kind of work on some of the sounds that may be missing. So, okay. Then it also goes over processes that persist after 3 years. And these are processes that we expect them to still be doing after age 3. If they're not, great. But if they are, it's okay. So cluster reduction is essentially when a consonant cluster is omitted or it's simplified. Okay. So instead of saying ice cream, they may say ice cream. Or instead of spoon, they may say poon. Okay, so that's an example of cluster reduction, or it's also sometimes known as cluster simplification. Very, very common. Epenthesis is when a vowel is misplaced or inserted in a word. So they say black for black. This is also a common error in English as a second language learners. If you are learning English and your main language is Spanish, they also use this as well. in some cases. Gliding is the most common one out there. I get so many questions about gliding. And so gliding is essentially when R and L are replaced by W. If you have a 3-year-old that is still doing this, don't freak out about it. It's okay. It's going to be okay. So, for example, they'll say one instead of run, or they'll say wook instead of look. Okay. Vocalization is when consonants are replaced by vowels. So they'll say Boyd for bird. Again, that's that R sound. It's just tough. Stopping is when a fricative or a continuous speech sound is replaced by a stop. And so they'll say toop for soup, because like I used to tell my school age therapy kids, that S or SH, that sound can go on as long as you want it to make it. So that's why it's called a fricative. So we're continuously putting friction through the mouth, right? But a typical error is to replace that sound with a stop, just because it's easier. So they'll say toop for soup, or Pete for peach, or something like that. Okay. So these are just some of the most common ones. This is not an exhaustive list of all the phonological processes. So let me go over a couple other handouts for you as well. Okay. So this one's pretty comprehensive. Okay. This one would probably be more geared for professionals, because it's very in-depth. It's very long, but it does go through pretty much every phonological process you could think of. What I like about this one is it has the age here gone by approximately years and months. And for these ones in particular, there's no age limit for those, because they're not typical. We don't want to hear these. If we hear these kinds of processes, it's more of an indication that there is a speech sound disorder going on, or even a phonological disorder or an auditory processing disorder or something like that. So these kind of alert us to further issues. But then it goes all the way down even to age 8 with the epenthesis error. And furthermore, I like this one as well. Maybe it's just because of the colors, I don't know. But it also does kind of break it down into different categories like assimilation, syllable structure, and substitution. And so it has, what I like about really all of these is that it really explains what's going on with these errors, which is very beneficial as a professional to know, okay, I know that wasn't right, but what kind of error was that? Or as a parent, to be able to kind of read through this and compare your child's speech to these charts. And then if you go get them evaluated with a speech language pathologist, you can have the knowledge and say, I think little Johnny is exhibiting some unstressed syllable deletion. And I would like for you to do an articulation test to find out. Okay. So I want you to really use these handouts to your advantage, to arm yourself with the knowledge, give yourself a little bit more confidence to walk into that speech therapy room, whether it's a private practice or you're going to your local school district for services. Knowledge is power, right? I always say that to my kids too. Like, the more you know, the more confidence you will have, because this is your kid. Okay. You know them better than anybody else out there. So I hope these handouts are helpful for you. Again, I will post the link to these on the description of this video. Don't forget, please check out my Patreon page and consider supporting me so I can continue to bring this helpful info to you. And I will see you next time.